Welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. My name is Michael LeBlanc, and I am your host. This podcast is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Global retail mall standout Yorkdale Shopping Centre in Toronto, Vice President and General Manager Michael Renaud discusses the mall's appeal from its 18 million annual visitors to curated luxury experience. Highlighting Yorkdale's evolution, he covers the impact of location retailer support, immersive experiences, and its community role with insights on future growth driven by curated, destination-oriented shopping. Let's listen in now. Michael, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me. Where am I finding you today?
I am actually sitting at the office at Yorkdale today.
Fantastic. Well, I'm very excited. Are you a Toronto? Do you have a long drive in? Are you near Yorkdale, or whereabouts do you hang your hat?
I'm East Scarborough, like border of Scarborough and Pickering. So that's where I live. So I don't know, call it 45 minutes.
That's not bad. As we were saying off mic, good podcasting listening time or news or whatever. There's certainly lots going on.
Yeah.
Audiobooks or whatever. But listen, thanks so much for joining me. I was, it's a big day. It's a big week. It's a big year for Yorkdale. And I've had folks on from the real estate and shopping mall industry in the pod. But I'm very excited to have you on and talk about Yorkdale because it's such a phenomenon. It's known around the world. So you're firsthand telling us about it and what's going on and the industry is just fantastic. Let's start talking about you. Who are you exactly, and what's your background, and what do you do for a living?
My background in the industry, at least, I've spent the last 12 years non-continuous working at Oxford on our office portfolio. So that would have been primarily downtown with the AAA bank towers. And then this year, as of April 1st, no April Fools, but I transitioned to a retail group and I'm now director and general manager here at Yorkdale. So little bit of a change, but it's been great. Big team behind us and a lot of the same systems. So
yeah, I mean, I could see the similarities, right? They're both very large physical structures. They're very important, they're very important places in the city. I guess the big difference, and I reflect on this for me, if you would, you're dealing with a thing that is like a social phenomenon. There's people coming in all the time with all kinds of different intentions. It's a meeting place. What's been your experience so far in the difference between managing a big office tower and managing a mall like Yorkdale?
I think the quickest way to put it is they're as similar and dissimilar as their physical structure. That an office tower is straight up and down, and it's think of that more as a house. You get the same 10,000 people at some of those big downtown complexes in any given day. But when you talk shopping centers, you're horizontal entirely, and you get, in the case of Yorkdale, 18 million people visiting through the year. So. And most of those are different, right? You're not entertaining the same individual. So I'd say it's there's the consistency is where you'll find the biggest difference, and it makes it entertaining in both arenas for the same reasons.
Right.
But consistency is probably the biggest thing, right? Who's your target, and how do you engage?
It's kind of like every day is going to be a different day, I guess, when you're in Yorkdale, right? It depends on who's coming and walking in through all those front doors. Now, you gave us some stats about the amount of people that are coming through. What was it, 18 million people a year that visit Yorkdale? Is that right?
Yeah, in and around.
Fantastic. And how many people would work there on any given day? That's a big number too, right?
Including all the retailers, I think, at any given moment, you're probably 3,000.
Wow.
I would imagine the total employee population to be around 7,500, give or take.
I mean, it's like a small town, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It's quite impressive. Now, let's. I have listeners from across the country and around the world, so most would be listeners to my podcast would be probably familiar with Yorkdale, but let's not assume. Tell us some stats. When was Yorkdale founded? What's its role in the market or its place as you see it? And you've already given us some traffic numbers, but give us just a sense of what is Yorkdale.
Yeah, absolutely. Yorkdale was constructed in 1964, and I think one of the biggest points that helps line up with where we are today is that when it was constructed, it was the largest enclosed shopping center with, HVAC capabilities. It already at that point had 6,200 parking spaces. So it was, sitting on about 80 acres of prime land north of the city. And it was set up really at the time to serve the expanding suburban towns in the area. So it was, as it was set up, to be the preeminent shopping center to serve north of the city. So from the outset, it by design, if you've ever been here and seen the double wide corridors or on a single floor, a lot of natural light, it was meant to be the shopping center from the outset. Dress up on a Sunday, you weren't just strolling in. So it's from day one, it was meant to be the place.
I was hosting some retailers from Australia, and we were doing store tours, and we were driving east on the 401 on a Sunday. And this was a couple of years ago, and they were like, first of all, shocked with the number of people on the 401. Like, what are all these people doing on a Sunday afternoon? Yeah. And then you know how it is. You come over a kind of a certain hill as you're almost getting towards Yorkdale. And then I said, you guys, we got to go to Yorkdale. And they're like, why? It's just another shopping mall. I said, no, you got to go. And just as we crested that hill, they saw the place that is Yorkdale, and they really kind of just stopped in their tracks. It's interesting because how big a bet back in 1964 was that? Was like, that's a 6,000 parking spots. That's a big bet in what was, a fairly sparsely populated part of North Toronto at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're the Eatons family, which they were when they purchased the land, you probably knew some things that the average person didn't.
Sure.
But bounded by Dufferin, the Toronto bypass, which would eventually become the 401, and then, you had the Allen in the area, plus the TTC subway Spadina extension was going to come through in the early 70s. So if you took a bet on that, you ended up pretty well, being bounded by three major traffic ways up to the center. It's one of the more easily accessible, depending on your view of Toronto traffic, it's still... You have multiple modes of arrival. So
fantastic. Now give us a sense of profile of the retailers in that box, as we're going to talk about this a lot more. But I think one of the keys to success for Yorkdale has been its curation of who's actually in that mall and your perspectives around that. And we're going to zoom in on luxury, for example. But tell us, if I'd never been to Yorkdale, give me a sense of who's in there and why.
I mean, if you've never been here, it's got everything you would ever need. We actually, when we held our 60th anniversary panel the other day, we were reminded that you can buy everything from lipstick to a car. And that's really what we do. We do have everything. I think if you walk the floor, you'll notice that we've curated certain sections to appeal to luxury, aspirational, everyday. And it has that flow, and you can respect it when you walk around it, which is nice. And it is, at the end of the day, it's real estate, right? So location, and where each unit is plays a part of the bigger plan.
What other stats can you give the folks listening? Square footage. I don't know if you have a sales per square foot. I know Retail Council of Canada did some studies pre-COVID with Retail Insider about productivity, but what can you share about productivity? Once again, just to kind of set the standard for who you are.
Absolutely. So our productivity at the beginning of the year and as we track is $2,400 a foot, plus or minus, I think, a couple dollars if I'm correct. So that was the high watermark for Canada. Set that record. When you look at what the second top producing center would be, it's about $1,000 a square foot behind.
That would be like a Ball Harbor in Florida, yeah? Is that typically has been the leader? Is that?
Yeah. So we're top 4 in North America. We'll be number 1 in Canada.
Top 4 North America. Fantastic.
Exactly.
And I don't know this number. How many malls? I guess let's talk about A malls versus all the malls. But how many malls are there in North America? Like that's got to be like 200 in your kind of relative class, yeah?
Yeah. I would expect it to be around that many.
Impressive. Very impressive. You mentioned Oxford. I just wanted to, could you touch base on who Oxford is? Because they have a very interesting portfolio, just for a minute or two, once again, for a bit of context.
For sure. So Oxford, as of this year, I think we're about $60 billion of assets under management. That's globally. So to put that into perspective, that's 4 continents, 8 sectors, 145 million square feet of commercial space, over 3,400 hotel rooms, about 10,000 residential units that we service. So the portfolio really, as we like to define it, is it's focused on premium properties in the best locations, regardless of the sector.
Now, I've always described it as patient money because I think it's owned by some of the pension funds, right?
Yes. So we are owned by OMERS.
Right. And OMERS, for those listening, is the Ontario Municipal Employees, right? Have I got that right?
Correct. Exactly. We're talking fire, police, ambulatory. Yes, everything.
Very patient money. Let's get into Yorkdale. Like, the numbers are wildly impressive and consistently impressive. What is it about the strategies and innovations that allowed Yorkdale to pull those numbers and keep pulling those numbers?
I think the biggest thing is location. You have to go back to that. When the bet was made, the location was central, and I think that is a huge part of it. And then it's the curation, but also the experiences, which is the push as we go forward. I think when you look back when Yorkdale first made its push into the luxury world, there was always the runway fashion shows, which we no longer do, but things evolve over time, and now we've curated some more experiences around Lunar New Year. And when you start to get into the holidays, which this year I think a lot of people will be blown away about what we're proposing to do this year. So it's for us, it's the push to experience and engaging on that front.
Unpack that for a little bit for me, because we're not talking a Santa Claus, though you might have a Santa Claus. We're not talking really a Santa Claus place to take the kids. What's an experience in your mind that really stands out?
I think the big word for us is immersive. So it can be a Santa Claus, but it's not just, looking at something from afar. It's engaging. It's finding yourself enveloped in it. We do the tree. We've done the classical tree for years, but that's a staple and not necessarily immersive. When we talk immersive, it's things that you can find yourself engaging with, visiting within, and wanting to spend time. I think, when you find yourself lost in the experience, you spend more time. And when you look at our dwell time here, I suspect that will increase exponentially over the holidays as people find themselves enjoying some of the stuff we will have.
It's interesting as you reflect on malls and what they do. I mean, you don't have a skating rink or a snow hill or a ski hill that some of these big malls have, or a roller coaster and things like that. So you're talking a very focused experience, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, each center, each mall will serve a different purpose within the community, and some will have the land mass to do a skating hill like you'd see at the mall in New Jersey that has that.
Sure.
But I think for us, it is targeting. It's knowing our market and knowing what we're best at. And I think that for us is very important, is knowing what we're very good at and continuing to build on that and not trying to be something we're not.
What do you see your role as vis-a-vis the retailers? It is your job. I often describe malls as it's your job to bring people together, get them into the mall, and then it's the retailer's job. You tell me if this is the way you think about it, to get them across that lease line. But do you see an intersection between those two? How do you describe your role when you're talking to your merchant partners and trying to get new merchant partners?
For me specifically, it's supporting my team. We have dedicated, our team is quite large. We have a retail leasing team. We have our design and construction team, to name a few. And those two really do work hand in hand in supporting, attracting and the positioning. And the positioning is more in terms of what do we look for in a build out, right? We want one of a kind storefronts. We want to help them help us make sure that this place stays relevant, stays new. So for me specifically, it's to work with my teams to support that, but then boots on the ground to make sure that the retailers here, the managers, the district area managers feel supported from the other services we provide from our marketing teams, our operations teams. So all told, we're about 170 people that work here in support of the project, the shopping center itself. So it's a large group.
Fantastic. Now let's turn the script a little bit. Let's go down and let's talk about luxury for a bit. So you're well known to have a very good assortment of luxury retailers. What are what's the key to that success? I mean, I feel like that there's always in major cities this idea of being standalone stores on a street. In our case, in Toronto's case, probably Bloor Street or Yorkville, or going to Yorkdale. Sometimes it's or. But how do you think about your luxury assortment and how you keep that so successful?
I think it goes back to another bet. The Oxford leasing team back in 2010, 2011, don't quote me on the year, but took a gamble on a couple of high-profile luxury retailers to, try to land them here, and they did successfully. And that was really the start. And then at some point you reach a critical mass of, part of getting everyone here is also we're enclosed. So I won't take anything away from Bloor and Yorkville. I love walking those strips.
Sure.
As a kid coming down to the city, it was something to behold. But when the weather turns sour, there is nothing like having, those experiences indoors. And with the way the team has imposed a design criteria here to make it feel like a streetscape, and with the available natural light that we get and the wide corridors, you have that feeling and presence to an extent when the weather goes south. And then if you've already been here and you see the collection we have, which is the largest under one roof, even in the summer, you have the ability to go outside, but why wouldn't I come here and pick from the top brands in the country?
Right. Let's talk about e-commerce for a bit. So on this nonsense about the retail apocalypse and e-commerce is going to dominate and it was going to be either or. I think we're well past that. Now, shopping malls, though, have had to adapt. And I've seen shopping malls who have tried. I mean, in COVID, I think I did a click and collect from your parking lot, actually, from someone at Crate and Barrel or someone.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we all needed some help then. But what kind of things do you do to help the retailers who are, obviously, we're all unified commerce, and some are doing returns to store, some are doing pickup in store, some want your support in other ways. Talk about how you think about the role of e-commerce in and amongst the mixture and its role in the mall.
I mean, Canadians are inherently different. We're still managing 60, 70% in-person shopping, right? I mean, that 30%, not quite 40 that you see in the e-commerce world, it's been that amount for a while, at least in Canada. And I think part of that is the experiences we give and have and the way we've built not just Yorkdale, but our centers in general. And then in terms of the support, I mean, we have a second to none marketing team here that engages with the physical brick and mortar stores to help draw people here, whether it's our in-house signage program, we have our directories, we have our large media walls, we have our Instagram profiles, and we do engage with the digital side to help people understand what the experience is on the brick and mortar side. And that is a full program here that does not show any sign of slowing down. So I think it's respecting that some people do want the sit on the couch, which is what we're battling, right? Our competition is the couch to some extent. But when you walk through Yorkdale, which it had been a while since I'd done years ago, and you come in, you realize what it is and what it means. So,
and this may be a question more for your leasing team, but as I've been in retail for a long time, when the leases were pretty straightforward, whether they were, they're very complicated, but very straightforward. You're gonna pay some rent, and then we're gonna give us a percentage of what you sell. That's got to be a more dynamic discussion with things like places that just showcase like a Dyson's or like places that do, as I said, pick up in store, delivery to store, that don't necessarily ring up in sales per se. How innovative is your leasing team in thinking that to support your retailers?
They're innovative. I mean, sales is sales, and you always want to measure that because that determines the health of the center, no matter who you are. And the language is constantly evolving. So I think insofar as we need to be on top of it and can be on top of it, we will. And we also recognize that, e-commerce is changing. So it's sometimes you do have to give and take in order to get what you need to establish and maintain the center. And you have to recognize that brands need to evolve and offer these different channels. At the end of the day, we benefit more from the multi-channel shopper, right? Those that shop online and shop in physical presence spend more than somebody who does just one or the other. So at the end of the day, it actually benefits all of us. It's just making sure that we measure it appropriately.
So let's say I'm a new retailer to Yorkdale, and we're having kind of our first meeting together. What you've already signed the deal, you're excited about being at Yorkdale. What when you and the team say, listen, here's the 3 things that will make you really successful at Yorkdale. What would those things look like?
I think it's so they've already got the relationship with the leasing team, which is everyone will tell you that is the most important one. But second to that is really getting to know our design and construction team, because the fit out process, construction is not easy. Construction can have pinch points. And when you're a retailer, you want to hit the ground as quick as you can to start generating that revenue. So our design and construction team is here to really work with everyone to create a one-off experience, which is a benefit for both parties, but also just make sure that the process is seamless, right? We have requirements, and we're going to work with you on that. So I think that's huge. Being a publicly accessible space like this, it's get to know the management and the security team. We run a very good program, great program here to the benefit of our retailers and the public at large. So get to know us. We're an assist as well. So that's number 2. And number 3 is, I think, and I've been encouraging this through my team and since I've been here, is just if you have a question, ask it. We 99% of the time have an answer. And if we don't, it's good for us to know what the answer is. It's everything from, how can we help with our valet services to, you have guests that require after hours shopping. How can we assist with escort back to the vehicle? So I think it is 3 big things, like get to know the construction team, get to know the management team and the security team, and just ask. We're here to help. I think that's the one biggest thing. If you don't ask, we don't know how to help.
I want to follow on one thing you said is that, the question I think of is the mall's role in the broader society, whether that's visitors, tourists, or just your role in the broader society, the broader culture of Toronto or of any city, depending where the mall is. How do you think about that? That you've got to, do you think you have a bigger role than, a transaction, for example? Like how do you view that?
Absolutely. It became very apparent to me very early on that it's a privilege to, work at a place that people want to come, right? At work, you have to go to work. Now, whether you agree with it's 3 days a week or 5 days a week, you got to go. But, people choose to come here and they choose to spend their hard-earned dollars here. And I think it's a privilege to operate a place that people want to come and you can offer experiences where you see people are happy. And it's a privilege to keep them safe while they're doing it, right? It's the public. If you have not done this, you don't understand what it means to have care over 18 million people in a year. And, whether they are from the street next door or they came from, what becomes our tourist group when they're beyond 65 kilometers, it's great care goes into making sure that the retailers and vendors here can thrive, but also the people that choose to come. So
all right,
definitely a privilege.
Looking ahead, knowing what you now know, and you probably learn something new every day in that job. It's pretty dynamic. What do you see the future for Yorkdale shopping centers like yours in the next 5 years? What do you, if you and I were to teleport ourselves ahead 5 years, what do you think, if anything, would be different? Other than probably the mix of retailers might change, but how do you see that looking forward?
I think, I alluded to it before, is the experience. As we mature on the journey of becoming, full-fledged shopping destinations, global destinations, whatever we want to call them so that people understand it. It's making sure that's an experience. And I mean that from getting off Dufferin Street all the way to the store you're determined to go to. Nobody wants to see the experience just start once you open the front doors. We want to make sure that people are engaged with us the moment they come into the parking lot. So I think, that means potentially reimagining roadways and the way landscaping falls. And it's just having it be a visual feast from the outside so that when you get inside, you can enjoy it as well. And I think that's, let's have people enter in a state of calm. It's a busy world out there, right? So if we can be a refuge for people spending,
a place of peace.
Yeah,
place of peace.
Exactly.
Last question for you. Hopefully it's a fun one. I want to break some news here or maybe get some inside scoop. Who's coming that you're excited about that we don't know about or that we know enough about? Who's coming? What retailer is going to be, can we look forward to seeing at Yorkdale soon?
I can't tell you anything we don't already know, but I know.
I thought I'd get you on that.
No, I know. You know what? Really excited to see Simon's coming in after Nordstrom left. That is going to be a massive lift to the center, and just not just all the employees that work here who are curious as to what's going on, but it complements us very well. And then I'm sure you're aware of our Centr Run project, where we'll be welcoming more of our luxury group. So waiting for Dior to do their thing. So I think those big chunks that the team has been working on for a long time prior to my arrival, seeing those come due early in Q3 next year is just going to be a massive uplift to the site. Yeah,
it's great to see Simon's moving in there. Great Canadian retailer, and Bernard LeBlanc was there. I think and Ian from Ian Rosen were there. It looked like a great session. So you got some great mix of retailers. Any way, what's the best way to get in touch with you if they want to learn more? Are you a LinkedIn guy, or how do you learn more about you get in touch or learn more about Yorkdale?
Yeah, LinkedIn's absolutely the best way. I use it frequently. I like to, it's probably the easiest and most convenient way to connect with people in the industry, and just to set up a time to have a chat. I'm always available for a coffee, phone call. I believe strongly in the power of personal relationships, just not even just for the sake of business, but just to, you get a lot more perspective talking to anyone about everything. So LinkedIn is absolutely the best way.
Well, fantastic. Well, Michael, thanks so much for joining me on the Voice of Retail podcast. It was great to get an update on Yorkdale and what a phenomenon it is, and just the shopping center phenomenon and the shopping centers of today and of the future. So thanks again for joining me on the pod. It was great to meet you. And like I said, thanks for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure and check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis and the Global E-Commerce Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Senior Retail Advisor, Keynote Speaker. If you want more content or chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.